Well,
Great.
welcome everyone. My name is Sarah Pearson. I am the assistant conductor of the Symphony of Northwest Arkansas, and I am so excited to have with us our guest today. This is Rick Salonen. Did I say
Yep.
it correct?
Yeah.
Yep. And he is with the Fayetteville Jazz Collective, and we are so excited because this is part of our upcoming concert Battle of the Bands. Rick, do you want to just tell a little bit about yourself, how maybe you got started in music, and how that brought you to this point where we're going to be working with you?
Yeah, I'm originally from Michigan and had gone to school there and then moved down here and finished my schooling down here. And so I've been in music my whole life and been playing in various bands. Before this, I had a job doing arranging for a group when I lived in Tulsa. And then I moved here and started playing in various bands around here in the Northwest Arkansas area. And we started, or there was a group started called the Fayetteville Jazz Collective. And I ended up writing a lot of music for them. And we've been doing that for about 9 years, I think. So.
That's awesome. So what was your first musical instrument? Like how you got started into all of this? Like what was
I
like
think
your
I was in fourth grade and my uncles played guitar. And so I
Okay.
saw that and I was like, man, I want to play guitar. And so my first instrument was actually guitar. I play
Okay.
mostly saxophone now,
All right.
but I play a lot of instruments but that was my first instrument was guitar. So
All right. And with the Fayetteville Jazz Collective, you mainly play saxophone
yeah.
or do you play guitar sometimes?
No, you wouldn't want to hear me play guitar unless you're around the campfire and you might want to hear me then.
So, who inspires you? Maybe early on, right? You said that you were surrounded by it in different forms and fashions. Who inspired you to kind of make that part of your life's path, like your trajectory, being involved in music? I don't know,
Um,
maybe
I
you could
think,
kind of point.
yeah, I think besides when I was really little, seeing my uncles play music, then it comes to find out later on that actually, oh, I'm from a musical family. I didn't know that growing up. My grandpa played guitar and played harmonica that's attached to the guitar.
Very
And
cool.
yeah, I've got a lot of my mom and dad both played instruments. And but coming into high school, I always liked the bands that had horns in them, like Earth, Wind and Fire,
Oh,
Chicago,
right.
yeah, Blood, Sweat and Tears. And one day my mom came home with this album from a rummage sale, and it had a picture of a saxophone on it. And what it was that it was called Super Sax Plays Bird. And Bird is the nickname for Charlie Parker, probably,
Yeah.
the most famous jazz saxophone player, that's lived. And I didn't know what it was, and I put it on. I was like, "What is this music?" It was
Mm.
straight ahead jazz music, and that caught my attention, and I was hooked, from that point on to liking jazz and wanting to learn how to play jazz and that sort of thing.
So, do you still have the album?
Oh yeah,
Like,
oh yeah, I still have
is
it
it
now. It's right over here. If I could get it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you fell in love with that. So how did that path take you to learning the saxophone?
Um, Well, when it started out, they made you choose in
Right.
band, and it was between French horn or saxophone. And it was a tough choice, but I ended up choosing saxophone.
Yeah.
And then just hearing of the professional players that were playing on that Super Sax Plays Bird album. And another gateway sort of band for me was Maynard Ferguson, which is kind
All
of
right.
sort of a crossover band between mainstream jazz and pop jazz.
Yeah.
But the players on there, and then I started learning from them who the other really good players were. And
So it was a natural kind of morphine, if you will, just kind of one led to the other, and
yeah,
you.
yep, that's it.
So you are also a composer. Tell us how that came to be. Like you compose and you arrange, or and maybe a little bit of what that what kind of music you typically create.
Okay. Again, it kind of goes back to high school.
Okay.
I wanted my pet band in high school to play Earth, Wind and Fire in Chicago, and there was no music for it. So I ended up scratching out little arrangements, for our pet band, trying to do arrangements of Earth, Wind and Fire or Chicago. And I think that's how it got
Had
started.
any, had you had any training on how to do
No,
that, or
no.
completely
So I
figured
was just doing it myself with no knowledge whatsoever, just
it out?
trying to,
Did your teachers help guide you? Did you have like band teachers that you would ask and they would be like, okay, you should do
no, unfortunately, they didn't know enough
mm.
themselves. Not to slight my band director or anything. Hope he's not doesn't see this, but um, I remember when they saw me doing this, my parents said, "Go ask a band director. Maybe he knows some stuff how to do it." And he handed me a Walter Piston theory book, which is like one of the most egg-headed books you could pass to a 17-year-old or 16-year-old. And it was just gobbledygook. I opened up the book and it had nothing to do with arranging or writing. So that was no help, there, unfortunately.
Well, that's
But
incredible. So just some natural talent on your end, being able to, and the
yeah,
desire to find out how that
I
functions.
did go to a really good summer camp,
Okay.
um, Berkeley College of Music, which is still there in Boston. It's one of the biggest, music schools for jazz and popular music. And they had a summer program. And I was fortunate enough that my parents sent me to Berkeley for the summer. And there we actually had classes on arranging. And I think that's where one of the first places
I
that I
bet you were
heard some stuff.
just in awe, probably
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, what it
I
looks
was
like.
like, a kid in a candy shop. I was like, man,
That's
this is
amazing.
great. This is exactly, what I want
Yeah,
to
I think
hear.
that's so cool that you mentioned that. Like we are finishing out music in the schools month, and just how incredible opportunities like that. If that had not come your way, how that would have altered your path, maybe the way
Exactly.
it would have.
Exactly. And I'm part of the Northwest Arkansas Jazz Society. I'm the secretary and a board member. And we've been that was one of the reasons why we started the Youth All-Star program with the NAJS Jazz Society, because of that very fact that we had a program that's happening. It happens in the spring semester, and it gives them a chance to learn about jazz and jazz music.
That's so cool. So outside of Berkeley, did you have any more training or pursue any more, or just kind
Not
of?
until I went to my undergrad, Central Michigan University. There
That's
was some
incredible.
really good, it turned out there was some really good arranging teachers that used to play in the big bands in the 40s and 50s. And I
It
was
was,
fortunate enough to have some really good teachers there.
yeah, it was definitely serendipity. It was just meant to be, supposed to
Yeah.
happen. So what would you describe like your creative process? Like maybe you hear a piece of music and you're like, wow, we should do that at the Fayetteville Jazz Collective or for whatever group that you're working with. Then how does that process work for you? Just for our
Yeah,
agendas, what that looks like.
I would typically say that I'm pretty utilitarian, meaning like I'm usually inspired to write something because we don't have it,
Right.
or I'm inspired to write something because I want to feature a certain person, like in our band. And it's usually not obscure, it's usually for a certain reason that I have like, oh man, we don't have a funk chart, so I'm going to write a funk chart. So typically it's to solve a problem usually, but every once in a while, probably I'm motivated the most by like a certain feel or a certain groove, and it's usually something we don't really have in our book, and so I'll say, oh man, I want to write this type of chart. Now over the COVID break, because it's like, oh, yeah, everyone talks about the COVID break. You had a lot of time sitting around, and so I said, oh man, I'm not just going to sit here. So I've got to write something. So I set my sights on writing a series instead of just one arrangement or one tune. I thought, oh, I should do a series of tunes because I have all this time on hand. So I said, I'm going to do a series of jazz tunes based on classical pieces of music. And then I started another series that this is a bunch of jazz charts that's based on real classical rock tunes, you know. And so with that little series, I did AC/DC and, you know, Rolling Stones and the Doors, which kids now you say the Doors and they go, who? Who are you talking about? You don't know. You don't know who the Doors are? They're like, no, I don't know who the Doors are, you know, which is shocking, you know. But anyway, so the music for this concert came from that. I was doing a series of arrangements based on classical music. And I thought to myself when I'm doing it, I go, I know there's going to be a day that SoNA is going to call us up and say, can you do a concert? So I was writing these things way ahead of time.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So and we're
kind
of lead into that now because that's like perfect segue. I mean, that who knew that during that time, but you are such a visionary, and to take that time, and now we get to reap the benefits of that and this so exciting concert. So for our audience, the Battle of the Bands, if you're not familiar with what's going to be happening, we are coming together. We have the Symphony of Northwest Arkansas on stage, and we'll also have Fayetteville Jazz Collective, and there'll be times that one will be playing than the other, and then times that will morph together. And that's where Rick has come in. And so we'll let you talk a little bit about that, Rick.
Oh, okay. So we had the crazy idea that, like you said, some of the songs we would do different separately, but maybe a couple we could do sort of back to back. This came from, there was one concert we did a while back where with SoNA where we both played Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker Suite, and they would play one movement from the Nutcracker, and then we would play Duke Ellington's jazz version of that from the Nutcracker. So with this one, I had done arrangement of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, which everybody knows the theme. Ba 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 ba. You know, it's like everybody knows that universal theme. And so with this one, they're going to play the first exposition, let's say. Then we're gonna answer that with a jazz version of that portion of the piece. And then they're going to play the next section, and then we're going to play the next section. So we're going to bounce back and forth and go through the whole movement of the first movement of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Then we're going to kind of do the similar thing with the Stravinsky's Firebird Suite. And I think there's going to be some portions of that we actually, for a split second, we're going to play together on both those tunes. So but again, we're going to pass it back and forth between the bands as the tune goes by. So we have never done that before. You know, we have always just kind of done it one after the other. So it'll be interesting at this Friday's dress rehearsal exactly how that's going to happen. So because it's never been done before.
All come together, your vision from even back during the pandemic of writing these and then collaborating, what that'll look like. I'm excited about that. Yeah. What are some things that FJC is going to be doing that on the show that you're excited about, or maybe that you've made up? Okay.
Well, taking the theme Battle of the Bands, we thought, okay, we should feature some of the classic bands from the history of jazz. And so we're going to do a Count Basie chart, which will represent that typical great Basie sound, you know, from the swing era. And then we're also going to do a classic chart from Duke Ellington called Concerto for Cootie. That's going to feature our lead trumpet player, Chase Cavalier. And so so we're kind of battling the bands within the bands. We're battling Count Basie against Duke Ellington, you know. Then we're also backing up the singer for the group, and we're doing the classic arrangement of At Last by Etta James, and then a jazz version of Summertime that I came up with and added the strings from the SoNA Symphony to the Fayetteville Jazz Collective ensemble. So that's a mixture of the two bands together, which will be really cool.
I think the cool thing about this concert is that it's outside of the box, like the
Yes.
norms people expect. I mean, yes, they're going to get the symphony experience, they're going to get the jazz experience, but to morph them together is pretty incredible. It's just, I love that part of it. So, and this may be a hard question. What is maybe right now your favorite piece to perform with the Fayetteville Jazz Collective?
The favorite piece we are performing or have ever performed?
Have any of them? If you can, I know it's hard.
Um,
What's your favorite symphony? I'm like, there's so many.
yeah. I think that the tunes that really showcase the group, and that's the advantage I have as the arranger composer, is that I know all the players, and so I can write something specifically for those players and really feature their strengths. And so one song that I think stands out is a piece I wrote for our piano player called Claudia Suite. And it's a big tune that features her at the piano, Claudia Pearson. And it really showcases her talent. Plus, along the way, the band is featured with their parts. And so she added, speaking of Claudia Burson, one of her original songs is on this program. It's called Goodnight, Mr. Waters.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, she wrote this original tune, and I heard it. I go, man, you know what, Claudia? I go, that would make a great big band arrangement. And so that tune that we're playing, if I had to pick one, that's an arrangement that we do that features Claudia, and everybody loves Claudia. So
Yeah, and I think we have on SoNA, we have a place called, when this up where this video will go to, but it's called Inside of the Music, and we list articles and music samplings, and that is one of the ones that I put on there. I thought, oh, that one, I was like, it's y'all's, and I thought that's perfect. Very cool.
Great.
So Rick, if you were not on this path, this trajectory, what do you think you would be doing otherwise?
I think I might have gone into medical school.
Really?
Yeah. But I'm not really sure. It's been so long being on this path
Right.
that I used to build they used to build model kits of the human body when I was growing up. And so they used to sell, little models of the heart, and then of the digestive system, and you
Right.
put it together and paint it. But I don't know. That's a long shot.
Like Operation, the game Operation.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
No, actually, that's not anywhere close to what that was, but think of that. So what would be the best advice that you could give to somebody? Maybe somebody's listening on here and they're super inspired by what you've done. Like they're like, I've always known I could do this, and I just don't know how to make this all happen. What would you tell them?
Probably the number one thing you could tell an up and coming jazz artist or jazz composer would be to listen to jazz. Because jazz is still an oral art that's passed down through listening, that you can't play or write jazz without hearing what it sounds like. It's kind of like trying to speak Spanish without ever hearing Spanish. If I say Casa de Pepe, it doesn't sound like Spanish. Tango hombre, I'm hungry. It doesn't sound like Spanish. It just sounds like you're saying those words. And so listening to jazz would be the number one thing I would tell anybody coming up. Just saturate yourself in the jazz language. Listen to historic recordings, listen to recent recordings. The internet's great because you have access to everything, but unfortunately, it has a reciprocal thing of not accessing everything, even though you have access to everything.
Yeah.
nobody accesses anything because it's like, oh, it's on the internet, you know. So
That's incredible. And Fayetteville is so lucky to have you. I mean, you just are such a treasure. What would be the best advice that you were ever given? So if, I don't know if you can like hone that into like something that you were given that you've just kind of held on to through the years that you would like to share.
yeah. Arranging wise, I would say that I had a teacher who, when I first took his class, he goes, I can now always tell how good a big band arrangement is by the trombone parts. And at the time, whew, went over my head. I had no idea what he was talking about. You know, I just remembered it like, what is he saying? You know, is it because he himself was a trombone player? But no, that wasn't it. And then as I learned more and did, I was like, oh, now I know what he's talking about. It's true. You can tell how good an arrangement is by the way that how they write for the trombones. So without going into detail, that's some advice that ended up being good advice along the way.
So kind of on the fun side of things,
Uh-huh.
what is a useless talent that you have? Like we know where you're super talented on the music side, but if you had something fun to share that's like nobody
Oh,
knows.
okay. Um, I can juggle. I don't know if that's useless. You know, if you gave me 3 limes, I could juggle 3 limes. Another thing is, some people, when I conduct and I snap my fingers, they're like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "You look weird when you snap your because I snap my finger with this finger." And I think
Oh,
everybody else, yeah, snaps with this finger. I'm like, how do you
yeah.
guys do that? You know, boy, that's a talent. How do you do that with that finger? I'm like, I didn't even know I was doing it wrong. You know, so
There you go. There you go. That's awesome. So if what's next for you? Obviously, we have besides Battle of the Bands. Does Fayetteville Jazz Collective have other things coming up? Do you that we could let our audience know about?
yeah. Well, the Jazz Collective has a couple summertime concerts coming up. One I know for sure is at Crystal Bridges, and then coming up the week of the 14th is a jazz festival that this is our second year we've been doing this jazz festival that is held here locally, and it's for the public school system and other people too, but it's over 3 days. It's called the UARC Jazz Festival. This year, that's what it's called. And many of the Fayetteville Jazz Collective members help out with it, either directly or indirectly. And we invite the public, high school, junior highs. They each get a 30-minute time slot, and it's a 3-day event full of performances. That's coming up the 13th, 14th, and 15th of April.
That's so exciting, and
Mhm.
the offerings that you all have, the output, that's just incredible.
Mhm.
Truly a treasure for our community to have. Well, Rick, it has been wonderful to get to know you, and I
Yeah,
know our audience has to be so enamored and excited to be able to hear your music live with SoNA and Fayetteville Jazz Collective. Do you have anything that you want to say as we finish up today to our audience in preparation?
just come on out, tell all your friends, you know, fill up the house, and we'd love to see you there.
Yeah, and we have listed on our website in case people don't know that you can go and find places to dine and eat and to stay and just make it a celebration. But yeah, do bring your friends. It's going to be an incredible concert. Definitely one not to be missed
For
for
sure.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Rick. We appreciate your time and our audience, and we hope to see everyone soon on Saturday, April the 8th at the Walton Arts Center. Thank you, Rick.
All right.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye.